Hey, I'm going to the Quail, and I gotta get my V-Strom prepped for the trip. Welcome to Urban Monk TV. Alright, so one of the benefits of living in Southern California, or frankly anywhere in California, is that every May you have the opportunity to attend the Quail Motorcycle Gathering at Quail Lodge and Golf Club up on the Monterey Peninsula. And man, as gatherings of old classic motorcycles go, or customs, it doesn't get much better. So a good old friend of mine that I grew up with in Fargo, just dear friend, is going to be coming from North Carolina, where he lives now. Rodney from Allison Sails and Canvas. You've probably heard me talk about him before. He is flying over and renting a Triumph to ride up with me. And also my good friend Jeremy, who's featured in, oh no, I never did publish that video, so never mind. Anyways, good old friend, drummer from a band I was in years ago. Great drummer, great look, great drama. He will be flying here with his girlfriend, and the three of us, well, the four of us, 3 bikes, are going to be riding up to the Quail. Hey, if I'm going to do a ride like that, what do I got to think about before I go? You know, it's just about 900 miles round trip for us. We're going to go up the coast as much as we can. The California 1, the PCH, is shut down because of a landslide up by Big Sur, but we'll have to go around that. But we're going to take in as much of that as we can. So lots of miles. Got to have the bike ready. And the V-Strom is more than capable for a trip like this. This thing's just a walk in the park for a machine like this. But I've got tires on here that have been on for quite a while, so I've got to analyze my rubber, I got to analyze my brakes, how is my oil, and you know, air pressure, and then think about packing my gear and that kind of thing. What I can tell you is I've got just under 30,000 miles on this front. I run Shinko 705s pretty much exclusively on this bike, other than the tires it came with from stock. And watch my review on that. I'll put a link below. Really like these tires for what they are and for what I do for riding. But just under 30,000 miles, I've got some pretty severe cupping now in this, and portions of the cupping, you know, I've got still thick rubber here, but then I'm getting close to wear bars on the lower part of the cups. So, and they're getting noisy. And of course, if your tires are cupped, then you're not really contacting the road surface properly and losing grip. So, changing out the front for sure. And then let's review the math on my rear. Minus 34,650. I've already got 8,000 miles on this thing. So worst case scenario, if I got 9,300 miles out of this tire, 9,300 minus, is that right? I don't remember the number. You know, the math and my history is telling me I can make this trip on my current rear tire. For changing front tires on these Japanese motorcycles, do yourself a favor, and you can do one of two things. Get one of these multiple hex surface tools. This thing's 17 millimeter, 19 millimeter, 24 and 22. I believe for the V-Strom, yeah, it's the 19 millimeter fits the V-Stroms. These things are cheap on eBay. I think I paid $8 for this delivered to my house. But if you have a welder or know somebody with a welder, you can also buy a bolt, but get, you know, cold steel. Don't get a galvanized. Get a 19 millimeter head and then a nut to fit it, and you can weld that nut to the bolt and stick that thing in the hole and use it. That's kind of the cheap ghetto approach, so to speak, and I've done that for years, but heck, for $8 I just finally got one of these, and that'll help you get them off. Easy peasy, as Zach Quartz would say. So put your bike up on a paddock stand in the rear, or stabilize it somehow back there, and then put a jack underneath the engine. Just I put a block of wood down there to protect the metal at the bottom of the engine, so I just don't have metal on metal contact there, and jack it up, you know, just kind of right around the bottom of the oil pan. And then the first step is to loosen these two bolts right here on this yoke at the bottom of the axle here. They do not need to be removed. The axle is not slotted here. And then get your 19 millimeter tool, pop it in there, and let me grab a wrench and we'll get this thing out. So 19 millimeter fits the axle, and you've got the choice of 24, 22, or 17 as far as your wrench goes. I've got a 24 that I use for the rear axle nut, so I'm just going to use that. And this thing should be pretty tight. There we go. It is tight. And thread it out. And once you've got the threads loosened all the way, you can just kind of first, you know, make sure you get the bike off the ground so the wheel is not contacting. You don't want to have weight and friction and pressure in there. And then as I pull this out, I can kind of wedge my feet up under it just to hold it and stabilize it. And there my axle is out. Set that down somewhere clean. And I'm going to have to loosen up my calipers to get it to clear. So I think I only need to take one caliper off. Yeah, one is all it'll take. 14 millimeter. I'm sure the service manual probably would have told me to do this first. I just dove in, so frankly, this is probably the wrong order. You can choose to do it in the right order. Now I think we'll clear. Oh, and then to clear the front of the fender, I need to jack the bike up even further. There, cleared it. And the wheel is out. Time to deflate and get this old rubber off of here. So here's what I'm talking about with the cupping. I think you can see how low the tread is there and how high it is here. Low and high. High and low. Hope that, you know, like here's, where am I? There we go. There's a high spot, and then it just cups in right there. So, hasn't been a problem for me other than you kind of feel it. Feels like you got a knobby on there. And this has only been in the last couple thousand miles with this tire. Again, I've got almost 30,000 miles on this thing. What a value. And, you know, could I have still gone on here? Sure, I'm just taking a long trip and want to get this off. Yeah, enough about that. Time to change it. And so then there's a spacer here on the left side that you want to pull out. There is not one on the right side. And for now, just, you know, make sure you protect your rotors for the rest of these steps. Don't set it down on the rotors or bend them or break them. And then for getting the valve stem or the core of the valve out. You just need one of these simple little caps that does that. Gosh, this thing looks like an antique. I think I got this from my dad, who probably got it from grandfather. I don't know. It's pretty cool. And get all the air out. Next step is breaking the bead, and it is a tough thing to do. I've used C-clamps, big C-clamp before. You can do it that way. I found that it helped to have two pieces of steel to sandwich the sides, the sidewall of the tire, and kind of spread the force of the C-clamp over a larger area of the sidewall, if that makes sense. I talk about that in my other video where I change out the rear tire on this bike, so reference that if you like, but it works, it's difficult, so I bought this Bead Breaker at Harbor Freight. It makes much easier work of this. I do need to get a couple of 2x4s out to keep the rotor from hitting some metal at the bottom of the Bead Breaker. I don't know if I'll show that because I don't want to turn this into a Harbor Freight Bead Breaker review, but just know that you need a couple of 2x4s if you don't want to damage your rotors. Put on my little homemade vinyl tubing wheel protectors. They're not a perfect solution, but they help some. So, with my knees here, pushing the bead down into this crevice here. If it's not down in there, you'll never get enough reach and clearance on the other side. So really important to smash that down with your knees. Then, as you pry up, it'll slide in. And you can get some leverage on it. Okay, I just sprayed a little window cleaner in there. Get my knees down. Another tip I would offer, I'm not able to do it here, is set your tires out in the sun for a while. Now, maybe I should have gone for a ride first to warm this thing up, but oops. There we go. There we go. There. One side, and then I get a good bite through and under to the other side. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm on the second bead essentially. Then make sure the second bead is riding up in the channel. It is. And with that, my local shop will charge $125 if I just roll the bike in there to do 2 tires, take the wheels off, front and rear, pull it off, put a new one on and balance it. If I just bring in the wheels, it's $50 for the two. Here's the problem. I gotta drop it off and then come back later, and I am way too busy for that. I need it, like, let's do it while I'm waiting. They can't do that. And by the time I drop it off and get it back, I can just have it done myself. So, and, you know, I keep the $50, put it in my gas tank. Or, $50 just about buys one of these. These Shinkos are really affordable. And you say, well, Urban Monk, you know, you got some cost into those tools, the Bead Breaker, tire irons, what else? Oh, the balancing tool. Yeah, a little bit. Harbor Freight is really affordable on this stuff, and judging from the number of tires I've already done, all of this stuff pays for itself pretty quickly, especially when you have more than one motorcycle. So an important piece, these wheels have an arrow pointing in the direction of rotation, so I know that this is the left-hand side of the bike, and so do my tires. So I'm looking at an arrow pointing this way, meaning this is the right side of the tire. Bam! So this is the way this thing goes on. The other thing to note is the little red dot. These things have been already checked for their weight imbalance, and this is the lightest spot of the tire, so you are supposed to line that up with your valve stem, which has a little extra mass to it. So get that lined up with your valve stem. Does it need to be exactly spot on? No. You know, could it be an inch off here or there? It's fine. Don't sweat it, but get it on this side. So I like to use the 3 tire iron method here. Get things kind of situated. And I'm really focusing on 2 at first, with the 3rd already staged, ready to go. And I can just, the other thing is I'm very well lubricated around that wheel. So I don't want to push it up too far. There we go. I mismanaged my camera there. I thought it was going when I did the last bead, so I'm sorry I missed that. But essentially, you got to put the bead, you know, down back here, and then work from here and here, and just keep working your way up to the middle. I had my feet up on here, pushing that bead down into the channel as I pried up this way. Sorry about that. I kind of blew it on the camera work, but it's on now. I'm not taking it off. And then I can just get my little wheel protectors out. They're not perfect. I've got some nicks here and there, but you know, it's an adventure bike. It's got some nicks and scratches all kinds of places. And good time to check that we're lined up here. We are. This isn't really the time to check your tire rotation a second time, but you know, If you had to take it off now and redo it, you could, but I go this way, I go this way, so we're good. Okay, so now without putting the valve stem core back in, it's completely hollow right now. I'm going to set the bead with just the compressed air. You're looking for 2 pops. Put the core back in, and then we'll fill it up. .36 psi is proper inflation for the front. No other ways to go yet. Okay, so with the wheel on the balancer, we're trying to find the heavy spot, which is now going to settle to the bottom. And I'm going to put my cap back on the valve stem because that's a little bit of weight. And just let it settle in. Okay, so our heavy spot is somewhere in here. So 180 degrees from that, I'm going to put a wheel weight. Okay, I put a 1/4 ounce on there. Now with our wheel weight here and the low spot down, let go again and see if it still returns. Still going back to the same spot, roughly. I'm going to need a second wheel weight. Make sure the surface where you're sticking these is clean. You don't want this adhesive to give out and for your weight to fall off while the tire is spinning, and then you're out of balance after that. Not quite as much that time. That's pretty stable. So we're going to go with that, and now we got to mount it back on the bike. Okay, let's get our rotation correct. Don't put it on backwards. Where are you? There you are. Let's slide it back in. I see my jack is falling down a little bit. Get back up. There we go. And then past the caliper. And then once I'm in there, now I can remount my caliper. And let's go ahead and put the spacer in right now. Okay. Torque for your caliper mount bolts is 28 pound-feet. And on our axle, I always just like to put some new heavy-duty grease on there. Nothing fancy about this grease. It's, bearing grease or molly grease, whatever. Put some grease on there. And then carefully get lined up between your brake pads again. There we go. Okay. Use your teeth underneath. Oops. And get your axle slid back in. There we go. And then, yeah, we're good there. Just turning the axle in by hand. Once I've snugged that up, I can lower my jack and put pressure back down on the wheel. Front axle torque is 72.5 pound-feet. Pretty tight. Same as your rear axle nut. And then torque on the front axle pinch bolts is 16.5 pound-feet. And that's not a lot. Don't overdo those. So that's it for changing the front tire. Hey, for that bit that I missed about the second bead putting the tire on, just reference my rear tire change video. Same process. Again, my apologies that I mishandled the camera on that piece. So I've got a I've got a front tire mounted for my trip to the Quail. My rear has got at least 1,000 to 1,500 miles left on it, so I'm going to go ahead and use it up on this trip, and then I'll be changing that out. Not another video on that coming because we already did that. What else do I need to consider before I go on a 1,000-mile journey? Oil, and I'm good there. I've got plenty of mileage left on this oil change. Check my coolant. Check my fluids on clutch and brake master cylinder. Check brake pads. On this bike I need to check the chain and chain tension. I'm going to go ahead and lubricate that chain before I leave, and because of the mileage I'm doing, I'll probably bring a can of chain lube with me and hit it, you know, when I get to the Quail before my return home. Somewhere around 600 miles is kind of the maximum that I like to go between lubes on the chain. What else? Tire pressure, put your valve stem caps back on. That's about it. The V-Strom is such a reliable machine and such a great value. Your acquisition cost to begin with is lower than a lot of adventure bikes out there, and then just the parts are cheaper for this, the tires are cheaper for this, and they run into high miles. I'm at 42,700 right now, and it runs like it did when it was brand new. Granted, I put the power commander in it, but I still love the Strom, and the value cannot be beat. Would I probably enjoy riding a 1200 GS? Sure, I'd probably love the hell out of that, but my wallet is not going to enjoy that very much, and I'll be getting to the Quail just like all the guys on the GS's. So that's it. If next thing you see from me will probably be the Quail. If you like cafe racers, check out my build on my GS 550. It's a 1978 model, real classic, and we'll get back to that after the Quail. And thank you for watching.